the next session. They all come. They all come.
Yeah.
Chair, yes. He's there, Mr. Bhavesh.
Yeah. For the next panel, Mr. Vaibhav Joshi, Mr. Akshat Birla, Mr. Aditya Damani, Mr. Chintan Udeshi, Mr. Aditya Khanna, Mr. Vivek Naidu. I will give a small introduction. Yeah. All of you are there? Yeah. So this session is about startup FinTech as an harbinger of India's growth story. As you are all aware, you must have seen a full-page ad by Government of India, or I think Startup Council 2-3 days ago in all the papers. We have more than 1,54,000 startups recognized by Government of India. I think we have about 6,000 FinTechs in India today. About 6,000 FinTechs in...
More than 1 lakh.
Yeah, 1,54,000.
1 lakh 50. We have completed 8 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the
That
FinTech...
all Bhavesh will take forward.
Yeah. In the FinTech, we have more than 5,000 FinTechs in India today. During the course of the speeches by various speakers today, what we found that in the personal loans, FinTechs have played a major role in sourcing people to borrow. Yeah. So they played a major role. They also collaborate with the large companies, large banks. So if you go to any large bank today, at least 10, 12 FinTechs are working with them in various processes of the bank. So to speak about what is happening in this sector and their experience and what is their plan going forward in future, we have the following experts. We have Mr. Vaibhav S. Joshi. He is an advisor to boards. He also consults on FinTech. He is a proven strategist, planner, and he has a strong experience in creating predictable revenue and sustainable business models. That's one of the major challenges for FinTechs. We all know that many of them, they don't make money, but he is the one who helps companies to develop sustainable, profitable models. Then we have Mr. Akshat Birla, founder and CEO of Bharat Next. Okay. Oh, that looks different. So he has come in a different avatar to this conference today. Yeah, Akshat is the founder and CEO of Bharat Next, a FinTech platform that allows business to pay almost anyone with their credit card, even if they do not accept credit cards. So that's great. So Bharat Next has a very simple pitch: pay vendor, GST, utilities, rent, tax, and more only on Bharat Next. So you also get 45 to 50 days of credit. For that you get rewards and cash back. Yeah, that is what attracts most of the customers to FinTechs, where they make more money using the platform than paying it directly. Then we have Mr. Aditya Damani. He founded Credit Fair in 2018, driven by his passion to enable financial inclusion and create tangible improvements for underserved Indians. So,
All green finance also.
oh, green finance also, okay. So after his MBA from London Business School, he worked in Occam in London. He also advised private equity funds, set up lending business in India, managing over 4 billion in debt assets of PIMCO USA. So he has a unique blend of mobile, B2B sales, institutional lending experience that has helped him run and grow credit fair successfully. You all heard in the morning when they talked about a digital infrastructure. Even though UPA has taken off in a big way, still it covers only 30%. So still 70% to go. So these are the FinTech platforms which will help people to reach more people, because we are talking about financial inclusion. Yeah. Then we have Mr. Vivek Naidu, founder and CEO of Hotfoot. Yeah. He has a history of working in banking and financial services. With that, he has experience in business process design and consulting and financial technology. He is again very passionate about lending. He has about 15 years of experience in banking sales, credit evaluation, score-based decision making, and digitization. So he has built a platform that will enhance lending and borrowing experience and also addresses financial inclusion, new to credit, lending based on surrogates and additional data. Then we have Mr. Manoj Kumar Singh. Is there? No? I have only these names. Huh?
I can introduce the rest.
Yeah,
I will introduce the
Yeah,
rest.
yeah. So, yeah, you can introduce the remaining people. Sorry, yeah, I have only that much data with me. Yeah.
Please come.
So we have Chintan Udeshi here.
Yes.
He is from Trade Penetrate. And we have Aditya Khanna, who acts as a board advisor to startups like Expentra. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a post-lunch session, but I hope that. Do you want me to awaken any of you? I generally do it when I have post-lunch sessions. Let me look at the faces. I think you are fairly awake, and probably the previous session, Okay. We'll get 5 minutes into this session. I'll just give you a brief introduction, and if I see some sleepy faces, we'll do that activity. Okay. So it's a very interesting session. Startups and FinTechs, Harbinger of India's growth story. Startup overall as a concept, has been there for donkey years. Businesses, when they used to start earlier, they were startups. What were they? They were startups. Now they have a new name, which is bootstrap startup. आप अपने पैसे से धंधा बनाओ, bootstrap startup हो जाता है, right? A startup is a startup where you start something, eventually get funding, do something, take it to a valuation, again get some more funding, Then there are revenue generating startups, there are valuation based startups. There are so many form factors of startups. You have FinTech, you have RegTech, you have Green Tech, you have Climate Tech, you have Agri Tech, आप टेक ऐड कर दो किसी भी चीज़ के पीछे वो स्टार्टअप बन जाता है एसेंशियली ओके आई रिसेंटली गॉट इंट्रोड्यूस टू समथिंग नोन एज गिफ्ट टेक आई वाज लाइक व्हाट इज इट आई रियलाइज्ड माय वाइफ स्टार्टेड अ कंपनी इट्स अ गिफ्ट टेक इट्स अ स्टार्टअप फाइन शी इज स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम द सेम textile tech that she was doing earlier, same office. Again, that's a startup. But it was a family business. She started a different brand. It's become textile tech. ये भी startup है. कौन सा है तो बोले bootstrap startup. But yeah, now on a more serious note, yes, startups have been the harbinger for growth, especially FinTechs. And why FinTechs? I personally believe that, the regulator in our country has been an extremely strong regulator who has been walking hand in glove with the market, with the industry, and often has been ahead of the industry. And I'm sure Mr. Narendra, with his vast experience as the chairman of IOB, can, attest to that fact as well, agree to that fact. The regulator has been paving the way for, how payments, liabilities, lending, wealth, insurance is going to, act or perform in this country. We have a very strong RBI, we have a very strong SEBI, we have a very strong IRDA. These regulators have somewhere paved the way of, today, us speaking on this session that FinTechs and startups as the harbinger to India's growth story. There have been a lot of developments, especially on the payment space. The FinTech revolution started with payments. NPCI was formed. They came out with something known as NFS, National Financial Switch. pre-NFS days, we used to have, arbitrage of MasterCard and Visa used to charge bomb to the banks. And then eventually NFS came in and, the switching of transactions started through NFS. Then it was RuPay which was introduced, and suddenly a 4.5 rupee charge came down to 60 paisa. And eventually, products came in where we started talking about, AEPS, APBS, prior to that IMPS, eventually UPI. Then the subsidy coming in. We had the trinity of Jandan, Aadhaar, Mobile. And then, with NPCI acting as a, quasi to RBI on a lot of things, where, the core payment products like a check clearing CHS, check clearing house, or NEFT RTGS stayed with RBI. IMPS and the more modern products were all routed through NPCI, which was a far more agile organization. And thereby, though the initial challenges of the transactions getting stuck, eventually you saw the rise of, fintechs like A, Paytm, B, Google Pay, C, Phone Pay, so on and so forth. And hence the penetration of a fantastic product known as UPI, which paved revolution to fintech in the country. So whatever form factor of fintech that we see today in the country is because of, the penetration of that one product known as UPI. They had actually initially tried it on IMPS, which was mobile number and MMID based, and which did not take off, right? Because nobody used to remember the MMID in those days. But UPI with that, VPA or a name @bank name, it simplified it, because we are all used to remembering email addresses, Vaibhav at YBL. We launched PhonePe way back 2017, I think, at Yes Bank. I used to be the country at digital banking, and, it was so simple. I could never remember my own MMID if I had to, give it to somebody to do IMPS. But this paved the way. Then what happened? Lending, on the lending side, lending tech platforms, erstwhile LOS, LMS, CRM for those who have worked on the lending side. But today, what do we talk about? We talk about lending tech. We talk about, hey, are you going to get me the customers? Bank says, yes, look, my tech platform is ready, my APIs are ready. What product you want to do, take the APIs, plug it in. This is what my underwriting parameters are. Make your, customer pass those parameters. 2 minutes, the customer loan gets approved. 3rd minute, the loan even gets disbursed. We have reached to that level of maturity. And how has that happened? That has happened riding on this fintech revolution. Talk about liabilities, remember those days when you used to go to a bank branch to actually open a bank account? Or you remember your first job when you had the relationship manager of the corporate salary account bank which serviced your company. He would come with a plethora of forms, sign, photograph, cross sign, ये box में sign, and you had this small boxes जिसके अंदर नाम capital में लिखना पड़ता था, because it would actually get scanned by some OCR scanner and it would then digitize and it would go into the CBS, and customer ID would be allocated to you, and then a bank account number would be created. You will get a checkbook वगैरह वगैरह. I mean, I have a checkbook, I have multiple checkbooks, but I don't remember when I used last. Checkbooks कहीं पे पड़े हुए हैं. अभी तो मुझे सोचना पड़ेगा where are the checkbooks, because I don't use it. I have actually stopped carrying a wallet. I'm not kidding. Nowadays I carry only this. It has all the cards that I need. And eventually I may not even need this, but I like to keep my phone, like very light, just with a cover. So most of my friends, they have something at the back cover of the phone जहाँ पे 2-3 cards चले गए. I don't carry my license. I don't carry my RC book, nothing. It's everything on my phone, right? So now look at on the liability side, the same thing has happened. The rise of neo-banking in the country, which is another form of fintech. Kotak 811 paved the way, where you could go ahead and do a digital-only account. And then eventually neobanks like Jupiter, NeoX, and the FIs of the world, you go, download the app, open a bank account, 2 minutes, you have a full-fledged working bank account riding on eKYC. The same thing was, innovated in MSME space as well, where, NSDL Payment Bank, they launched it with Checkbook and EasyPay, my erstwhile company where I used to be the CEO. A 5-minute digital-only current account, okay, for, of course, individual car and sole prop car. And then you are in the game. Look at fintechs on the other side, the assisted model. Have you heard of Spice Money? Have you heard of Pay Nearby? Have you heard of MobiSuffer? Have you heard of Bankit? Bankit recently, they got acquired for 160 crores just last week, right? So what are all this? Look at all this assisted model fintechs, where at the last minute, okay, I'm going to stop here. I see some sleepy faces. We are going to do that exercise. This is a very interesting session, guys. I'm talking with passion. I'm requesting all of you to stand up for a minute, including my panelists. Okay, so after this, I am hoping no more sleepy faces, okay? So when I was a kid, I used to learn taekwondo, okay? And there is an exercise that, they would, so the session was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. School se aao, khana khao, thoda homework karo aur jao. I'm going to do that exercise. I'm going to request you to hold my mic so I can speak while you all do this, okay? This is just to wake you up, wake up those CP faces. Guys, can you stand like this, little bit? Thoda sa on your knees. Okay, do your hand like this. And repeat after me, okay? Ha! 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 Again, now in tandem. Ha! 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 No, like this, come on. 1, 2, 3. So that's your head, that's your... Okay, when you do that, inside awakens. Any more sleepy faces? No, there is one more exercise. We can do like... Okay. स्टैंड अप करा दिया ना लेकिन कॉमेडी नहीं करूंगा so where were we? Yeah, so these liability startups, okay, neobanks, they came in digital savings account, digital current account, 2 minutes, 5 minutes they would do. And then eventually what happened, we acquired, I remember, 1 million savings account customers in under 9 months during, when we launched NeoX. Now, when we talk about all this, what is this? If it is not the Harbinger for growth, we have seen the rise and the penetration of something like a Paytm, a penetration of a phone pay. Do you know that when you go to that panwala or that shopwala and scan the QR code, because you are doing that UPI transaction, you are empowering that shop owner to actually avail credit, which normally he may not have been able to avail. How? Okay, that is the power of FinTech. But while we do that, and before we embark on this journey, we have a very distinguished panel. I'm going to request everyone to give us an introduction about them and the business, and then we'll try to have a candid chat. I have some points over here, but it's such a fantastic topic that, I think a candid chat would be far more better than compared to, following a theme. So can we start with you, please?
I was enjoying listening to you, but I can speak.
I'll catch up.
Hi everybody, this is Akshat Birla here. I'm founder at Bharat Next. I have had a very interesting journey, right from my engineering days to going and doing consulting, then a banker for almost about 7 years at Credit Suisse, and Credit Suisse is no more. Then did my MBA in France, then I was in Korea working with Samsung. Very interesting project with Samsung as well, launching Samsung Pay across the globe. And then eventually came down to India and did my first startup in 2018, which was on supply chain financing side. And then we pivoted to Bharat Next. Bharat Next is a very, it's a very dear topic to us because what we embarked on doing was essentially solving, the financial inclusion problem for the micro and small businesses, right? And what we saw was that, the on-demand capital for making payments for these guys was always an issue, right? They had to plan in advance, get, the term loans or capital or informal credit to do these sort of payments. But already in their pockets, they had credit tools which they were not utilizing properly. So we said, can we find a way for them to utilize what's already in their pocket in the form of credit cards and utilize it much better in terms of, making all their day-to-day payments, right? Which is when the genesis of Bharat Next happened. We've enabled vendor payments, we've enabled rent payment, we've enabled GST payments, tax payments, and utility payments on essentially a single platform for these guys, and also allowing them to manage their credit cards in one place, view all their limits in one place, see which credit cards to use, which credit cards are due, make their dues, upcoming payments and all of that, right? So the whole idea was to make life of a MSME or a micro business very easy and roll the red carpet out for them, right? We started with credit cards, but we're going to add on credit lines to them, other sources of capital for these guys. We're working with NPCIs to sort of create a B2B platform and participate in that B2B platform as well. A bunch of very interesting stuff going on, and would love to chat more, when we have the time. But we're doing very, very interesting work, and including a lot of work on AI side as well. Right, and very excited with what's happening in India from a fintech perspective. Never looked back from my corporate career after having become a fintech founder, And it's every day almost is a learning for me, and I'm hoping today is no different.
So Akshat, let's stick with that idea for a moment. You mentioned, and in fact, the guy who introduced us mentioned that, you have cards integrated on your platform, and your platform is primarily at MSMEs. Is that correct?
Yeah, micro businesses.
Micro businesses. So micro businesses, mom and pop retail shops.
Yeah. Proprietors, sole props.
There are 63.5 million MSMEs in the country, ladies and gentlemen, out of which almost 99.5% are micro businesses. Okay, that is why, the small finance banks mushroomed from NBFCs. That is where, a lot of business happens today. It's a very interesting take, Akshat, and I would like to probe you with a couple of questions over there, if that's fine. So, MSME lending has been, the bane of existence for a lot of lending tech companies today.
Yeah.
Okay, having built one of my own in my earlier avatar, I can at least vouch for that. And when we talk about, MSME, almost 70-80% lending that is done over there is unsecured lending. And almost 60% of this may not have bureau data or would be NTC -1.
Correct.
NTC -1 is new to credit, by the way. So those who don't have bureau credit history. So I'm assuming that those NTC -1s and new to bureau are out of your ambit for the time being, because you're focusing more on for the time being. Okay, but at least the ones that you are focusing on, what is probably the percentage of the target users that you target in MSME segment have credit cards?
So we were very surprised, right, Bhava? So when I used to run Finovate Capital, we were working with a lot of corporates and their supply chains. And we were working with, dealers, distributors, retailers, sub-distributors, and all of those guys, right? And when we started looking at, the data from them and speaking to them, almost 7 out of 10 of that audience had cards. But they only had cards from a lifestyle perspective, not from a proper use case perspective. Yeah, lounge access चाहिए, points मिल रहा है, किसी ने ले लिया card, हमने ले लिया. It's more a lifestyle and a status symbol sort of a thing, right? They were never used from a credit tool perspective. So a lot of these guys have it and don't use it, right? To answer your question in terms of what percentage, as a percentage of the overall credit card population, which is huge right now, almost about 30% of that is the sole props and micro businesses segment that we are talking about. So it's something which is not talked about a lot, but a lot of these guys do have access. And the strange part is that, when you talk about, credit cards is a tool which is being very easily given out, but, if you talk about MSME loans or if you talk about business loans or corporate cards, suddenly the outlook completely changes for the same person, a sales sole prop. And that's been one of the major problems that we are grappling with as well, right? So a couple of things that we've tried to solve for, right? One is this segment, as you said, is very difficult to cater to, purely because ticket sizes are very small. And if your ticket size is very small, your access cost doesn't change that much. So a huge access cost for a small ticket size is not economically viable for most people, which is where these guys get left out, right? And so what we have done is essentially been created that access using a tool that they already have in their pockets and love, right? Second thing which is also there is that, even if you get the credit, can you sort of monitor and have end-use control? आप पेमेंट कहाँ पे कर रहे हो, राइट? आप अपने बैंक में ले लेते हो तो आपको पता है किधर जा रहा है पैसा. You hardly know, right? Is it going for taxes? Is it going for rent? Is it going for your vendors? Where is it going, right? Or are you actually putting it in the markets and sort of, gambling with it? So at least that part we have tried to solve for from that perspective.
So basically what a cred is to an individual, Bharat Next is for MSMEs.
Don't like that comparison, but yes.
No, it's very interesting, Akshat, because I can immediately relate to a lot of use cases that, probably me as an individual, since I have stepped out of my corporate career and, operate a proprietorship, a LLP and a private limited today, I can directly relate that every time there is some kind of a cash flow mismatch or issue, we have to go for some kind of a debt arrangement. And probably that's where, this credit cards can come in very handy if I start using your app. Is this solution available on APIs?
On APIs, yeah. I mean, we can make it available on APIs. I mean, the entire thing is on a mobile platform, right? I mean, again, see, the audience you're catering to is not an audience which will want to go and log in on their laptop and do it. So we don't even have a web interface, right? So it's a mobile interface with APIs enabled.
So probably, one other side of the table thing for you can be, maximum fintechs are actually trying to get into unsecured lending when it comes to MSME space, and they are looking at, getting the arbitrage between the FLDG or the, source finance to what they are lending as a revenue model. That is where a lot of investment is also coming in. So essentially what Akshat is trying to say is we are going to kill the market if you get the right amount of funding, because you are essentially saying that, hey, your credit card, your business, while you use it for personal use, you start using it for your business use and get a 45-day or a 55-day free credit window as well.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of fintech, right? I mean, we've only raised a small round of funding, which is about 10 crores, and we've created a business which is now closing in on processing about 10,000 crore of credit that we have unlocked for these 1.8 million MSMEs. Right, so that's the kind of power you can sort of flex if you hit the right spots in fintech as well. Right, and that's what excites, I think, most of us in terms of the potential it offers.
Fantastic, amazing. Thanks a lot, Akshat. From Akshat we move to Aditya. Let me grab a mic over there and pass it on to Aditya, because I suspect that a lot of these people operate in MSME space. So we are trying to give a flavor to the audience. Hi, Aditya. So quick introductions about you and what you do, and then we can dwell into a couple of use case related discussions.
Perfect. So, hi guys. I am essentially a career banker and management consultant till a few years ago, when I actually stepped out and started advising startups and fintechs. The reason why I moved out was exactly what we spoke about earlier. The challenge in India is not that we don't have smart people, we don't have people who know how to do business. The challenge we have is that they either don't have access to the right tools, whether funding or otherwise, or access to the right knowledge. FinTechs as a platform, that's what it's enabling. Whether it is helping a farmer figure out what is the price in the mandi, or take a snapshot and figure out what is the disease that Pant University can tell him, your professor can tell him, put this pesticide, it'll get rid of it. Right from that level to MSMEs being able to use the credit that they have and realizing that this credit card with the 7-8 lakh limit can actually help me churn my business. It's access to the right tools which make it easy. It's access to the right information that's helping propel our entire business forward. And that's essentially what interests me in this space. That's why I moved out from a 20+ long corporate career working with all of the large banks and insurance companies onto working with startups in this space.
So Aditya, let's talk about the work that you have done on the supply chain and the agri side first, and then we'll reach to the B2B side. So you did touch upon briefly on the agri side. Okay, what do you think a role fintech has to play, or a loan new age NBFC lenders have to play as per the new DLG guidelines? How do you think innovation can play a role over there, such that these two entities become a harbinger for the growth in that space? Specifically, we can talk about agri, we can talk about demand side, supply side, or probably even the FPOs.
So, that's a very interesting space. So, fact is, a large chunk of our country is still in agri. And it's not just food agri, even textile. It all goes back to agri. The problem is that on one hand, you've got very, very small farmers whose lands have been subdivided down, so they might not even be sustainable. And on the other hand, you've got banks who don't have the cost structures to be able to lend to them and are frankly fearful of lending to them because of all of the loan waivers that have happened. I've seen a number of fintechs play very, very interesting roles in sub-pockets. So these are people who have experience either because of a family background or the work they did in specific areas. And what I'm seeing them do is tie up 2 or 3 things. One is make sure that you can aggregate demand for their produce and take it down. What that does is it guarantees revenue for the farmer, which can translate into any kind of lending being repaid back. The second is, because you're using digital platforms, you're actually creating a database on which a traditional lender or a regulated entity actually can lend. Today, the banker sitting in the branch might trust you implicitly, but he cannot give you a loan on his gut feel. But once you've built out that, as a dairy farmer, as a orchard owner, once you've built out that 1, 2, 3 years worth of history of revenue and of repayments, that's what allows you to actually graduate to lower costs of lending. And the third piece is, because you are digitally connected, you start getting access to an awareness of a lot more features and services that both governments and private entities are providing. And that is what can allow you as a small artiya, as a small trader, or even as a small farmer, grow your business. So again, very, very interesting space and very, very specific use cases. Oilseeds has its own use case, chilies, tobacco farming, dairy, you name it, there are specific solutions that are being offered today for every crop that you want to grow.
Amazing, amazing. Some very interesting use cases come to my mind as well. And, I have seen this a lot in the Western countries, especially in the, developed countries. If you talk about something like a US, then, there is a forward lending that happens based on contract farming. So imagine, there is a farmer or a group of farmers who have, small set of lands, not too large a land, small set of land. I'm talking about an India scenario. But there is a company who has actually bought out their produce in advance, even while they have not harvested the produce, based on the back data of past 3 years, past 5 years of produce that they have been creating. And because of that contract, where that entity has actually come, the buyer has come and bought out the produce in advance, these farmers are in a position to secure access to funds or lending, which under normal circumstances they would have not gone, or they would have gone for a mudra or some other kind of a lending, which would probably a farm way of loan kind of a thing. But here, because of that contract, they are able to secure the loan, they are able to harvest, they are able to cultivate, they are able to grow, and then they are able to sell the produce, and that actually becomes a cycle for them. So that's a very, very interesting use case. I think the formation of FPOs in this space.
I was just coming to that. I mean, all of us are familiar with Amul, which is the cooperative model, and we've seen how successful it is. The government is trying to replicate that with something called farmer-producer organizations, which are essentially sets of farmers in a particular region, could be multiple villages, and you can be a landed farmer or a landless farmer, but you come together as a corporate. That cooperative is a corporate entity, and today, while you cannot do contract farming with an individual farmer, you can definitely, as a big buyer, have a tie-up with a corporate, the FPO, and arrange for produce pickup. Now, because it is a member-driven entity, all of the members are shareholders. Whatever profits the entity makes goes back to the farmers. Secondly, they are able to buy in bulk, so they can secure better rates, whether from government or private sector entities. Third is, again, as they build out a history, they are also able to get lending. So even stuff like pre-shipment finance, being able to, for the FPO being able to get money to be able to buy the produce and pay farmers in cash, and then deliver forward. Again, a lot of this is being enabled by, partly by technology, so a number of FinTechs working in this space, and partly by government regulations that a lot of organizations are taking advantage of through CSR initiatives. So the government gives money for setting up of FPOs and management for a period of 2 to 3 years. There are corporates who are setting those up. There are other players who are creating platforms on which these FPOs can ride and connect to various markets.
So I'm going to take an example there, because my father is a farmer. Of course, he's a retired banker, but he's also a farmer. He farms, we belong to Ratnagiri. It's an area in Maharashtra. We have that Alfonso mango, farms. So every year, he's like, now when that cultivation, the, what do we call it, pesticide, etc. happens, and then every year he has to, is saal mere ko itna naya jhad lagana hai and all those things. So he'll be like, okay, Vaibhav, tell me one one lender association who is going to help me do that. And I'm like, koi nahi karega. You take money from your pension or you take money from me and let's do it. But if we were to form an FPO over there, there are so many of these Alfonso farmers over there, probably, all these platforms will come in, because that's one of the top products of the country.
Absolutely.
Hafus, Ratnagiri Hafus that we call it.
Absolutely.
And most of it gets exported. Amazing idea.
As a geographical indication, I mean, Ratnagiri has a GIO tag
Correct.
also, right?
Correct.
Absolutely. Ratnagiri and Devgarh, 2 districts next to each other. So imagine, FinTech going all the way to the farm as well. Aditya, sticking with you, let's talk about one more use case, because you were talking about B2B SaaS and how, on the corporate side, you have been helping innovate. Give us a flavor of that as well, because we want to understand. See, fintech, when it comes to fintech, we always feel that it is either related to a consumer, so basically UPI, or related to a merchant or a MSME, which is again accepting the UPI or payments or lending. So can you give us a flavor of fintech in corporate?
Okay, fair enough. So now I'm going to swing. So I've gone from individual farmers. So I'm going to swing all the way around to large corporate entities. Now, all of you have worked with large corporate entities. Put yourself in the CFO's shoes. Like it or not, you're dealing with multiple banks. You're dealing with multiple bank accounts and different rules and regulations around how much money you can transfer from one to the other for what purpose. Banking today, unfortunately, in India is painful as a corporate customer. If you don't believe me, set up an LLP and try and open a bank account. The same ICICI bank that is very simple to log into as a retail consumer becomes extremely painful when you try and do the corporate banking one. I've never had problems with my personal account, but for my LLP, I have to go and literally see what is the user ID and password. Can never remember it. Now, this problem gets even worse when you are a large corporate trying to deal with 50, 100 accounts. And you're trying to find out how much money do I have, how many limits do I have, can I see an aggregated view? It's not going to happen very easily because you're not going to let yourself be dependent on one bank, and neither will any one bank be able to provide all of your needs. So one of the startups that I'm working with, Expentra, is essentially working on connected banking. So we are a utility platform that allows a consumer to connect, so a corporate consumer to connect all of their banking relationships onto a single platform. Now, what's the ask there? It's very simple. It's not about, can I get access to money? The ask is actually, do I know how much money I have right now so that I can deploy it where I need to? Do I know how many limits I have so that rather than call up 20 different RMs, can I see it at the press of a button? Can I consolidate my funds either at the press of a button or automatically and deploy it maybe in an overnight treasury, because I know that the next payment I need to make is 3 days away? Can I make sure that I am paying the right people and that in my 10, 20,000 people organization, nobody has tried to slip in their own bank account number? These are all operational process, right? As a CFO, how can I simplify the management of my banking relationships? And how can I make sure that I'm able to utilize what I have? So this is, as I said, right at the other end, connected banking for corporates, where the banks are actually our partners. They are the provider of services. We are a platform that allows you to use them in a single place, in a single dashboard. The other end.
Yeah, so corporates is the next big barrier, corporates and MNCs, when it comes to fintechs. And the reason I touched based upon this topic is because in your day-to-day life also, being a part of a corporate entity, in some form factor, you manage multiple bank accounts, you manage multiple banking relationships, you manage multiple lending relationships. Imagine, one platform where, you just see all the bank accounts in one go. And I have seen 160 of them in one view, by the way. In one screen, I have seen 160. In some group CFO's office where, he had a big size TV, probably 2x the size of this, and just the dashboard where 160 bank accounts, and on a real-time basis, what balance is going up, that was in green, the balance going down was red. So I think corporate and MNC is the next big space. Probably, it's not talked about because NPCI kind of doesn't operate in that space and is more focused towards retailer, which has been the main backbone of the country's this thing. Coming to you, Vivek, so if we can have Vivek and a brief introduction and what you do and about your business, and then we can dwell upon the innovations you are doing in that space.
Oh, thank you, Vaibhav. Pleasure meeting all of you. I know it's an afternoon, but like you said, I think the challenge is to keep everybody awake. Started my career as a banker. Was privileged to be involved at the time when the Golden Quadrilateral was built in India during Vajpayee's tenure at the government. Used to drive cars before that was built, and going from Chennai to Bangalore was horrendous. And then had the privilege of being involved in financing a large number of contractors who built the Golden Quadrilateral, sorry. Then became a working capital banker. I was with Citi. MSME is a buzzword now, but in 2005, 2006, not many people even knew that it existed. And Citi, the pioneer that it was, also tried to finance that segment of the market. So very early stages of what MSME was. Did banking for close to 15 years, and then eventually understood that it just boils down to two things. How much will you give, at what price will you give it? And there's nothing more. So if you can give me a limit of 100 crores, and if you can give me at X basis points, then there's a transaction, right? But I think learned a lot during that process, and then we launched Hotfoot in 2016. There were two things that we wanted to focus on. While I did a lot of work in the mid-market of the funding segment, I personally felt that the borrowing experience as a retail customer was horrible in an Indian bank. I remember taking a home loan from HDFC, and I had to go to one of these loan processing centers, take a token, and wait in that center till the time that you are called just to get one of my stage-wise construction payments released. Couldn't understand it. Why do I have to come and sit here, authorize a payment? Was one. The experience was bad. And during the banking career, I also felt that the entire product approach to technology was a big barrier in delivering experience. Technology was a constraint. Even today, it continues to be a constraint for a large number of institutions. So most banks fit their business into the available software. That was the constraint. So you went to a loan origination company, a loan management, or a CBS. Even if you go to Finacle today, you have to fit your business into Finacle. And that's why the FinTechs make such a big difference, because I think that's the barrier that they have broken, right? They have reimagined technology with whatever resources that are available. And in the process of doing that, I think they focused on the user experience itself. So I think that's what we've done very successfully at Hotfoot in the last 7 or 8 years. We've done two things. In sections of the market which we thought, so somebody was mentioning, or during the introduction it was mentioned, today it's extremely easy to get a personal loan, right? Especially if you're a salaried person, so on and so forth. Getting a personal loan is very, very easy. But there's a section of the market which has income but does not have income proof, essentially micro enterprises, and also individuals below micro enterprises. It could be the maid who comes to your house. It could be the electrician who comes to your house to fix something. It could be a carpenter. So these kinds of people, if they want, let's say, a two-wheeler loan or a three-wheeler loan, or if they want a business loan, it used to be impossible to get these kind of loans in 2015, 2016. So we were among the pioneers in the country who facilitated lending to this segment, where we built something called income estimation models, which allowed financiers to use our models to be able to target these customers, because this segment was very less understood, so on and so forth. And the second part of it is, in this segment, we found that these people, so if you take a kirana store, or if you take a small restaurant which is run, it's typically mom and pop, or it could be the proprietor and his family members who are running these institutions. They don't have the flexibility to leave that particular institution and go and sit at a bank for a loan, or somebody who wants to get an affordable bank or affordable house financed. The person is an Uber or an Ola driver, right? They cannot leave running their cars and go and sit at a bank and that's the other problem that we've solved, is that we've created a platform. So today, we've created an experience for somebody who wants an affordable mortgage or a home finance to get a home loan from a regulated entity as an HFC or a bank, but to get the entire loan processed, also approved and disbursed without stepping into the institution even once. All of those services are given to those people at the place at which they operate. Could be a taxi, it could be a restaurant, it could be a tuition center or whatever. So I think that's what we've done.
So do you acquire customers, or do your customers acquire customers?
Our customers acquire customers, because customer acquisition is a very expensive game.
So basically, your customers are the financial institutions.
Our customers are banks and NBFCs and all kinds of financial institutions. they use our technology we facilitate these transactions using the technology.
Amazing, amazing. So, for most of us, we think that fintech is what we see on the field, where, the B2C part is what is the fintech. So the phone pays, Google pays, and the, Paytms of the world are what the fintech is. But now, taking a cue from what Vivek just mentioned, probably the actual fintech, which is automating the processes and the technology and the products at the financial institutions which actually give us the products, is where fintech started. So probably is it fair to say, Vivek, that Infosys and Oracle were the original fintechs?
I wouldn't know. It's a bias. I'm tempted to say no. Yeah.
But okay, so if that is the case, then I definitely hope that a lot of B2B fintechs like you, and at least let me put the name of an M2P, which started on the lines of,
Yes, absolutely.
doing the same products as what a Infosys, Oracle, or a LOS, LMS, Newgen used to do. Probably, so let's aspire that the B2B fintechs of the world, and that's a very niche space, by the way, okay, a big booming space over there, because automating that process is that, consumer has to go through. That has been said by the financial institution. Automating those products, digitizing it to the extent that the entire experience given to the financial institution's consumer is done in a fast track mode is amazing, Vivek.
Yeah. So if I could just kind of put some number and example to it, right? So the unsecured lending space, where it used to take somebody who even at a fintech, fintech enabled lending institution, I would like to call it, before the prevalence of the kind of technologies that we've built used to have us there, it used to take them around a week to get a loan of a 50,000 or 75,000 rupees. We've made this a single day affair. You can apply in the morning and get the money disbursed. We new to credit, new to bank customer. So I'm not talking about pre-approved where you're already existing. And in the mortgage space, affordable mortgage space, you would tend to think that even if you're a salaried customer, with all of the clarifications that bank wants, it takes you around 3 weeks to get a mortgage approved and disbursed. We've brought that down to 3 days. So that's the pace at which our technology works in enabling the customer experience.
Amazing, amazing. I look forward to, a lot more use cases in this space, especially, with, and just 30 more seconds on this, 2 more cents from my side. A lot of AI is also being done in this space. A lot of AI-driven agents are also being created, okay, to automate the financial processes that are there at the back end, where, these banks and NBFCs used to have a plethora of operators who would, process those things, which are now which were earlier done physically. Now they are done by, small AI bots, which ride in the system, and they are specifically designed for that particular process, automating them. A lot of fintechs are also mushrooming in that space. Thank you, Vivek. And I will come to Chintan, Udeshi. Chintan, if you can, introduce us to your line of business.
Sure. Thank you so much. My name is Chintan Udeshi, and I'm a founder of a RegTech, or a regulation technology startup called Trade Penetrate. We are helping Indian manufacturers and exporters to showcase their product as well as production level compliance to their foreign importers and financial institutions using technologies. And essentially what are we doing? We are bundling using 3 forms of data. One is IoT sensors on the production floor, using geospatial data, using satellites, and then the third piece is digital public infrastructure, sort of combining all 3 of them in a bundled manner in a joint data pipeline and mapping them against compliances. And what are those really compliances? There are 2 forms of compliances which manufacturers really need to showcase. One is something known as non-tariff measures. There are tariff measures and non-tariff measures. Tariff is something which we hear Donald Trump saying every day, which is quantitative in nature. I'm going to put 100% duty, right? That's very quantitative. Non-tariff measures are some rules, regulations, and they're very precise. They're product level, they're country level, and they're industry specific, right? And we are mapping that at an 8-digit HSN code. HS code is obviously what we all know at the GST portal we see. And along with that, we are mapping against the ESG frameworks, right? The goal is to use both those data which is multimodal form of data, and help them, the manufacturers, to showcase to the foreign importers to generate incremental revenue. Something which is for $4 can be sold for 4.5, right? At the same time, showcase the same data to NBFCs and banks to help them access export factoring at a cheaper rate, right? So help them make $1 and save $1, get an access to capital, right? That's the end goal. In terms of what I started building this since 2021, and I've been doing this for roughly around 3 years. First 2 years, it took us a lot of effort in terms of data building and a lot of because there's no one had worked on this sort of product, right? And this is a very hot topic which actually became hot after COVID, right? The supply chain traceability issues have started cropping up. In my previous avatar, I was in the KPMG's global risk innovation team. I was building risk products, credit risk products, market risk products, compliance risk products for various jurisdiction, which is for EMEA market, for Asia Pacific, for India market. And I did that for 6 years. And before that, I was with Thomson Reuters. And there I was in the, again, governance, risk and compliance team, helping primarily banks, investment banks, insurance companies with various form of capital market, compliances which they need, adhere to. So yeah, I think that's my, background. Happy to sort of answer your questions.
So, Chintan, a lot of work being done in the trade finance space then. I assume that, a lot of the manufacturers who are looking at, who operate in the bill of lading space or the trade finance space, they would be using your solution on the RegTech side?
Yes, and that is the core use case that, they are, every day there is a notification flying in from some jurisdiction saying that, okay, this is your product, carbon border adjusting mechanism, CBAM, you must have heard a lot of issues around that. You see the Commerce Ministry going into negotiations with each and every country, signing so many FTAs. And in FTAs, they are just trying to negotiate not just the tariff piece, but what is not known as the non-tariff piece, right? That can our standards be aligned to your standards? If they are not, then it's a huge issue, right? And that is something, and the trade finance piece, what you said is right, that what right now is happening from a trade finance piece and export factoring sort of really solves a lot of problems is because there is no credit risk assessment happening in the domestic market, right? The assessment really happens of the buyer, and that person gets discounted, and once the goods are on the ship, the seller here gets money in their bank account, right?
So two very interesting, innovations that are happening in this space, Chintan, is one is, I foresee your platform as the source from where, all these entities can start generating carbon credits and eventually trade from that. And two, I also see, and my personal take of, there is a lot of trade that happens on high seas. When the goods are actually on the high seas in containers on ships, and the trade that happens, there is a lot of delta to be made because of a fluctuation in the dollar value or the currency. With this kind of traceability solutions that you are developing, I think your type of customers can have a lot of arbitrage over there in terms of that saving $1 or earning $1 part.
And you rightly pointed out, and these are all short form of arbitrages which they are thinking or which is going on at the back of their mind. But what we also encourage them to say is look at the long-term issues, right? Look at scope 3 traceability. That's where try and differentiate yourself from Vietnam, right? Because we have matured digital ecosystem which others don't have. And that is what we need to utilize, right? As at a country level, we have that which other country cannot. They can probably stand out on manufacturing piece. They can stand out on logistics. But digital ecosystem is something we have, and we need to stand out on that. That's
I already have a partnership proposal for you.
Thank you.
In fact, for each one of you. So coming to Aditya, our last panelist. And Aditya, quick introductions about yourself and what you do at Credit Fair.
Sure. Thank you so much. Very happy to be here. So I've been in financial services my whole career. Already a very kind introduction was given about me, so I'll speak more about Credit Fair. Credit Fair has been in the fintech and lending space since 2018. We have our own NBFC. We have probably one of the few. We have two NBFCs. We have a P2P and a loan NBFC. And initially our focus was more on healthcare and education financing, but since last 2-3 years with the whole movement to green and seeing a very good early mover advantage in rooftop solar, we have doubled down and focusing on green financing. So we are enabling anyone from a household to a small business to save on the electricity bills and give finance to put up rooftop solar. Currently, we've as of now we've enabled over 7,000 Indians to go green, and they're saving about 50 crores on an annual basis in electricity bills.
Amazing, very interesting. So how much of you know that, the government of India actually has a subsidy if you install solar rooftops? And please raise your hand. And the energy that we produce at our house, installing the solar rooftops, we actually can sell it to the government. Okay. Yeah, agree, completely agree. And all of us who stay in Bombay have a house back in our hometown or village somewhere. So I have a cousin who stays in Vadodara, it's in Gujarat, and he installed this, and he's like, I asked him, so he was telling me, so we were discussing some fintech program and some lending fintech he wanted to do. And then he says that, now I don't pay the electricity bill, but in fact I earn from him sometimes. I earn from it sometimes. And I was like, amazing.
Right.
In this context, maybe he can talk why the society cannot have their...
I was just going to say, your societies can... Yeah, it's not happening enough, but they can, and there's a very good subsidy for housing societies as well. So at least for your lift and other common amenities, the solar can... So for example, in my building, the problem is that the roof space is actually not enough. And the other parts in the building where there is open space, but then there's a lot of shadow. So I think there are certain technical challenges in large parts of Mumbai, but then at least on the outskirts where there are bigger buildings, bigger societies, I think it's very feasible.
So Aditya, thank you for that. And there are some very interesting distribution mechanisms that I feel can benefit you. We will discuss it offline. But having said that, I think that was, from the panel. We tried to do it slightly differently instead of, the normal question answer. And while I still have the questions that I had prepared, I thought, such a diverse variety of products and fintechs and solutions we have, it's better if we, just go with the flow and have a candid discussion. And this was more candid than just a panel discussion. I'm sure you guys would have enjoyed it. But yeah, open to question answers. If, you have any questions. Yes, we have Manoj there, so let's start with him.
Thank you, very interesting discussion. My question to Aditya, and maybe relevant to anyone else. What about lots of societies that are being formed, construction that is happening? Are they prepared for solar, to install solar? Are they going for solar upfront or waiting for the members to come in and then form, set up the solar?
Yeah, so in states like Maharashtra, it's mandatory for new building societies to put up solar. So there it is very active. Yeah, I still think we might have covered like 3,000 societies or something in Maharashtra. So there's still lakhs more to go.
So let me answer it from a user perspective, because I used to be the chairman of my housing cooperative society. We tried to probe this subject within the society, and because of the probably, and I'm talking about Bombay, but probably lack of information about the right solution that is available, readily available, we could not reach a solution. And also because we were not aware that such kind of a lending can be availed,
right,
and what kind of a subsidy can be availed.
Right.
Okay, so I saw the gap as more of information awareness, though we were keen to do it. And eventually what we ended up doing was some vendor who came and sold us, those solar water thing with some solar panels. And we had to still go for the generators for the common amenities. So imagine, for somebody like us, well-educated, staying in a metro like Bombay, lack of information, and we could not do it while the intent was there.
I have a small query, question, you can call it. With so much of technology getting into banking and lots of, retail banking space, right? Typically, I'll give you an example of senior citizens filling up 15H form only through their app. And in our building, most of the senior citizens live alone, their children are all abroad. And there was nobody to assist them. there was such a havoc because from this year, banks suddenly stopped that you cannot, file any 15H form in the physical format. It has to be only done online, right? And there was no help desk set up. There was no, support provided to them, and there was a lot of chaos. So some of us, formed a small association. We tried to help out. We helped them download the banking app, and finally their 15H, was filed up where they could safeguard their interest. Otherwise, they had to pay huge interest on the, huge tax on the interest that they earn out of their fixed deposits or something. Is fintech space doing anything to protect such users? Because in many places, absolutely, there is an absolute abolishment of physical transactions, right? No paper or going green. But the senior citizen is actually challenged to use this technology. So are we doing anything? Is there any plan somewhere where there's some awareness campaign, or there is some, educational program which is planned when we are going so heavy on technology?
So two things to it, ma'am. So one is the actual problem, the 15H form, which is essentially you are alive or not, that you are not dead. That's the form we are talking about, right? So that is an essential criteria because banks need to vet that, and immediately, that getting online is a concern. But there are entities like Maha Online, Aple Sarkar, where those can be interfaced, and this assisted model based form filling can be done because these kendras are available across almost every suburb. They are available. One. But having said that, this is a very green space when it comes to fintechs, which is FDs related to senior citizens. It comes in wealth tech, and there is a space where probably some idea can be sown over there. So probably, Manoj, if you want to write about it in banking standard, that's a very good use case, and maybe somebody will pick up the idea and do something about it.
Okay.
So Vivek and
You
Akshat,
want-
I just have a question. So we're talking about, these people availing loans easily. What about the interest rates?
Interest.
Are they attractive enough?
Oh yes, absolutely. Today, from a business perspective, if they went to a money lender, the interest
I'm talking
rates.
about bank and
No, it's on a comparative basis. So if they didn't have access to mainstream finance, then the interest rate starts at 36%. And then, you borrow in the morning, give it back in the evening, then there's no calculation only. So most of these people, from a working capital perspective, today are able to avail at anything between 16 to 18%. Affordable housing even lower. So business MSME loans is at 16 to 18%. MSME, your affordable housing, I would reckon, is around 13, 14%. The cost of their last comment. The cost of their borrowing is actually higher because NBFCs are far more active than banks in this space. So NBFCs by default have higher cost of funds. So once, I'm told that the demand for credit in this segment is 5 trillion globally. So once banks become active, I would tend to think that the prices could fall further.
I completely agree, and just to add to that, right? I mean, see, again, bulk of that premium that is going in is risk premium, right? And access is very costly. So if you can solve access through digital means, already a huge chunk of the cost is gone. And then with data, with sort of transaction history, with a lot of other supplementary data, if you can solve that, the cost of risk premium also goes down. Nobody wants to charge high rates, right? I mean, it is about creating a viable business model, and the viable business model is low rates for both ends, right? Even for the borrower, I mean, high rates are absolutely unsustainable, right? So, but at the end of the day, I mean, if the cost is taken care of, these rates are coming down already substantially and will keep coming down.
Okay.
That's all time we had. Thank you so much.
Yes. Give a big clap to our young and energetic team. And both in academic institution or anywhere, FinTech startup is definitely required. I think both of you are also taking care in your college also, because the young generation, they, after of course, with the experience, first of all, they should have a full-fledged experience. They should put all hard efforts to learn. And after that, after 10 years or 5 years, depending on that, they should jump. And but they have to also know what, because even like Piyush Goyal साहब ने बोला सभी बैंक के means government का ही help आता है, ऐसा एक्सपेक्ट किया तो नहीं है. You have to towards your own what you call intellectual property or your own innovation should attract the necessary investment after your seed funding and all. So I am sure आपका सभी का ये initiative है ना, and you are each one of you doing in your own field should get the clap of all our audience here. Now I request CS Arya ji, please come, and please come. Yeah, give it to Vaibhav Joshi, please. ये ना, please give. He is from our general manager from IDBI Bank. आपको seed funding और other funding के लिए इनको पास जाना पड़ेगा. Yes. And I request now Manoj Kumar Singh ji, zonal manager, general manager, national small scale industries. आइए, आप इधर रहिए सर, एक ग्रुप फोटो निकालने का. Please give it to him. Please, our Vivek Naidu. Yeah, welcome. Can I call Manoj ji? आइए. You give it to young, very young and energetic. आपने senior citizen बात करते हैं. Young and energetic अक्षत बिरला. Yeah.
दाढ़ी निकालना पड़ा सर.
Yes.
You're completely unrecognizable.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much. I will call Sharad Kumar आइए. Yes. Give it to Aditya Damani. Young, आपका तो और भी यंग एनर्जेटिक है, वो तो होने वाला है because all my good wishes. Can I ask our PN Shetty ji, please come. ये है ना, आप वन एरिया आप सबको अनसेक्योर्ड लोन मांगता है. You have to catch hold of Mr. PN Shetty. He is the company's rupee boss.
We'll go to them only.
Yes, yes. So you give it to our Chintan Udesh. इधर है. Yeah, then I will call anybody from our Union Bank or any other bank here. Okay, otherwise, madam, please come. Yes, Professor our Lakshmi Mohan. Yes, yes. Now you give it to Aditya Khanna. Yes. अभी वैभव जी सबको दिया नहीं है ना? Everybody given or pending है? So we'll have a group photo. Come. Yes. Madam. Yes. Yes. Come. Yeah.
Hold on everyone. Generally, I take a selfie with the panel if I may.
सेल्फी लेने के साथ हो सकता है? Yeah. Yes. Yes. पैनलिस्ट, आप पैनलिस्ट, हम जरूरत नहीं. Please come. इधर आइए. Yeah. Now we are having 4:30. We'll be starting the MS session. And our chief guest Manoj Kumar Singh is already here. On the next please have the tea and please join here. And that is the last session. And all of you are requested to come tomorrow also by 8:45 and or earlier also. There is a breakfast 9 to 9. And the evening there will be a gala dinner as well as award function. Thank you.